7 tips for getting through your first pandemic. Hi, I'm Steven Shomler. Welcome to the Steven Shomler channel. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, getting through your first pandemic. I personally have never been through anything like this in my life. It feels like the whole world is on fire, and is anyone ever going to be able to put it out? And we're still early on. I'm filming this, early in April 2020, and I'm afraid things are going to go a lot longer and a lot worse than maybe some people are saying. I hope I'm wrong. But for me, I'm kind of 3 weeks on home lockdown. That's kind of my journey. And for at least the past 3 weeks, I've had scores of people reaching out to me specifically about the pandemic from all over the globe and asking questions and sharing their journey and their misery and their fear and their confusion. And I've been teaching them these things. And I figure I might as well make a video and teach these 7 things that I've been teaching to people, because I know that it's been helping the people that I've been caring for, via text or phone calls or Instagram messages or Facebook Messenger. I just want to do my part. The first tip is get your goals right. Get your goals right, particularly if you're a type A personality, whether you're a type A extrovert or a type A introvert. Oh yeah, there's such a thing, type A introverts. Or if you're a content creator, get your goals right. The first goal is not to accomplish a lot during this pandemic. I talked to a friend yesterday, and he just says there's a stack of books that he kept saying he would read when he had the time. And now he's been on home lockdown for 3.5 weeks himself personally, and he hasn't touched that stack of books, and he says they're haunting him. Get your goals right. The goal through this pandemic is not to accomplish a lot. Your first goal is to survive. You have got to survive this pandemic. That is your first goal. So if you've got guilt, you're not accomplishing a lot, flush that nonsense. Get rid of that. You need to survive, and you need to practice self-care and take care of yourself. And if you feel like you're resting a lot every day because you're so exhausted, you probably are. You probably need to practice that self-care and take care of yourself and get good rest so that you can survive. That is the first goal. And hear this. This is bad. I was talking to my 23-year-old son, Zach, and he said, Dad, this is kind of massive. This is kind of unprecedented, isn't it? I said, yeah, Zach, this is massive. This is unprecedented. And the shock and the reality that should he survive this, and knock on wood, I hope he does. But should he survive this, this is something that his grandkids will ask about. Dad, Grandpa, did you go through that pandemic? They'll go to their Grandpa Zach and say, did you go through that pandemic? What was it like? This is massive, and this is huge. There was a time in our country where we talked about before 9/11. We're going to talk about a time in the future where we say before the coronavirus or before COVID-19. One of my favorite bumper stickers from years and years ago, it's sarcastic, it's terrible, so forgive me, but reality is for people that can't handle their drugs. And I always just thought that was kind of funny. It made me laugh because some people don't want to handle reality, and the reality is this is really bad. And I say that because some people still don't get it. They don't think it is. And if it's really that bad, then give yourself grace if your first goal is like, okay, I'm going to survive this. And if I survive it, I'm a content creator, and I didn't make very much content during that time, but I survived, fantastic. So that's goal number 1. Get your goals right. And your first goal should be survival. Don't be hard on yourself. Tip number 2, you need to rest. You need to rest. Going through discouraging times is exhausting. When you go through discouraging times, it wears you out. When I've been through discouraging times, it wore me out. And that means you need a lot of rest. You may find yourself needing more sleep than you normally do. You may find yourself there's days you don't have energy. That's happened to me. Or I just don't have the energy to do certain things on some days. And I feel like I didn't get very much done today, but I realize I need rest. Because I need to survive, and I need to rest and not go around exhausted and miserable. So tip number 2 is make sure you get plenty of rest, because it is exhausting to go through discouraging times. And let me say it again, in case you haven't picked up on this, these are incredibly discouraging times. Tip number 3, you need to practice self-compassion. You need to have compassion for yourself. My sweetheart got me this incredible book, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. Self-Compassion by Christian Neff. It's an incredible book, one you might want to check out, or just get your mind around the idea of being compassionate towards yourself. Give grace to yourself. Years ago, I used to work in the nonprofit world. I did a lot of teaching about grace. I came up with a working definition of grace. So I'll teach it to you now. There's nothing you can do to make yourself any more loved. And there's nothing you can do to make yourself any less loved. You are loved. Now, that may be hard depending on your background and how you grew up. That may mess with your psyche. You learn some performance stuff. But I'm telling you, you as you are loved. And let that sink in. Journal about that. Let that be part of your practicing self-compassion. And I taught that definition for you. People that heard me speak years ago say, oh man, I remember hearing that. But I've added a second part to it because I've discovered people really struggle with this too. Here's the second way to find grace. There's nothing you can do to make yourself any more valuable. There's nothing you can do to make yourself any more valuable. And part two to that, there's nothing you can do to make yourself any less valuable. There is nothing you can do to make yourself any less valuable. You are valuable as you are. Now, I don't have time to unpack all that in this video and really go into depth, but let me tell you, you are loved just as you are, and you are valuable just as you are. I promise you. I promise you, and I rarely promise. So please, practice self-compassion. It's really, really important. And I've got two tips that I want to put in number 3. They're 2 bonus tips, and I want to put them under compassion because some of you aren't nice to your own self. So you need to hear it in the under self-compassion. Is have a routine. Have a sometimes routine. That'll really help you get through this pandemic, where sometimes you get up at 8 and you do certain things and you go to bed by 10 or whatever your schedule is. Have a schedule, a routine that you follow most of the time. But don't beat yourself up if there's days you just are wiped out and you can't follow it. That's happened to me a number of times, and we're just 3 weeks in. In my journey, I'm 3 weeks in. I don't know about your journey, but give yourself compassion as you practice a routine. And then the other one I'll put in there, I guess that was the third little point under 3 is exercise. And I know for some of you that go to the gym all the time, this has been devastating because exercise at the gym brought a lot to you. But if you regularly have an exercise part of life, man, for me, going out and taking a walk every day has been life-changing and just fantastic. I mean, I did it before the pandemic, but doing it even through this pandemic has been super, super helpful to my emotional and mental well-being. But again, I put it under the tip number 3 of compassion for yourself. Because some of you are going to, exercise, and I didn't do it today, and I feel like a loser. Well, okay, so you do it 3 out of 7 days a week. You do it 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7. That's okay. As you have a routine and as you do some exercise, please be compassionate towards yourself. Tip number 4, find some joy every day. Every day, find joy. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but every good day, good day, those days where, you're up and about. Like I said, I've had those tough days where I just can't hardly do anything through this time. Same thing after my son Zane passed. There was days I couldn't do anything, and this kind of feels similar to that. For me, it's not as tragic, but it's still really rough. But when I have those good days, man, I am finding joy every single day, whether it's the beautiful clouds in the sky on my walk. I love taking photos. I take a lot of photos on my walk. Whether it's the flowers, I noticed today on today's walk, this tree looked barren and still, wiped out by winter. But I looked right up at the tippy top, and there was these little buds and leaves coming out, and spring is coming, new life is coming, and that just gave me so much hope. It brought me so much joy. So tip number 4 is find joy every day. Tip number 5. Tip number 5 is one that some of you don't want to hear, but it's grieving. If you're going to get through this pandemic, one of my tips for getting through this pandemic is to grieve. It's rough. A lot of you are going to have some serious losses. Some of you may have financial losses. Some of you will have loved ones that you've lost. Some of you will have both. I've been through both. I've lost my son. I've lost everything financially. I know what that's like. You probably watched a video just before this where I cover that in depth. A video called We Will Get Through This. If you haven't, I encourage you to go watch it. But you're going to have losses. At minimum, we're going to lose some of our way of life. We talked about before 9/11, and now I think, in the future we'll talk about before coronavirus, before Rona came and got us. We'll talk about that, and life is going to be different, and you need to grieve. Because grieving is like going to the bathroom. And I'm not being flippant or funny when I say that. It was a fun thing years ago to teach on stage. And hey, grieving is like going to the bathroom. And everybody kind of, chuckles and laughs. And, I had a lot of really cool bathroom analogies for it. But you know why? You know why it's like going to the bathroom? Because when you don't do it, bad things happen. And when you don't grieve, you don't get it out, bad things happen. So if you want to get through this, you need to lean into your grieving. And there is no shame in crying. I cry all the stinking time. Please lean into your grieving, lean into your crying. That will help you get through this because we want you to get through this. I want you to get through this. So make sure that you lean into your grieving. Tip number 6. Tip number 6 is gratitude. Be grateful. I'm telling you, wherever I find admirable greatness, it's accompanied by gratefulness. Let me say that again. That was so powerful, man. You should write that down. Whenever I encounter admirable greatness, it's accompanied by gratefulness. Man, have an attitude of gratitude. Be grateful. You know, there was a time in my life, I told the story in the last video, where I was super grateful for some Folgers instant coffee because for a while I didn't have any coffee. And hey, at least I had that. Get an attitude of gratitude. Gratefulness will get you through this more than most things that you can imagine. Have an attitude of gratitude. Be grateful. And number 7 is going to sound crazy. Man, number 7, it sounds insane, but learn how to enjoy your life through this pandemic. Now, some of you are like, what is he talking about? Steven has lost his mind. This guy's a kook. Forget it. Can't enjoy your life in misery. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, and yes, you need to, because you being miserable through this pandemic does nobody, especially you, any good. And I have a whole teaching series, how to enjoy your life. I did 4 videos, and then I thought, oh, I don't know if I should release those in a pandemic, and then realized, oh, hell yes, I should. So then I made a video, enjoying your life through a pandemic. And so you can go watch those videos. I'll put links below, but please make sure you're enjoying your life through this pandemic. I know that sounds crazy, but it is so much more pleasant to be around people that are enjoying their life or figuring out how to enjoy life than people who are just miserable curmudgeons. You don't want to be a miserable curmudgeon. Trust me, you don't. And if you have family and friends, they don't want to be around it. And if you're single and you're locked up alone, you don't want to be around your miserable self. Learn how to enjoy life, even if it's hard. And I'm not saying if this is new to you, the idea you can enjoy your life and you try to do it in the midst of a pandemic, that may be really difficult. But let me tell you, you can. Let me tell you, you can. And I've been through difficult times. I didn't know how to enjoy my life when I went through the Great Recession. I was on the front end of that journey. When I lost my son Zane in 2016, I did know how to enjoy life. And I'm telling you, having that skill, that ability, that practice, that perspective as part of my life made going through the hell of losing my son so much better. Okay, I've labored hard on that one. That one was number 7. Just know that I am pulling for you. I believe in you. You are loved. You are valuable. And we will get through this.